Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. Today's video, I'm continuing my series of ranking my 100 favorite movies of all time. This time we're going with number 85 to number 81 on my list. So stay tuned to hear my thoughts on these movies on Jason the Old Millennial. Hello everybody, hope everybody's doing well here on a Tuesday evening. Having a pretty good day. A little stormy today, but it's pretty common here in this time of the year in Kansas, anyways. But hopefully, just no tornadoes come around here, and I'll be okay. Talking about some more movies I absolutely love that I own myself, and to talk about some really great movies. Some movies that you might not know that well, some classics here for sure. We got all kinds here, so always love to showcase some movies, hopefully some good recommendations that if you don't know these movies, and I'm talking to you, Mike, if you don't know them, sorry, Mike, just kidding. Hopefully you'll check them out for my recommendation. So let's go with number 85 on my list. This is, I don't think, a big hit movie necessarily, kind of one that kind of surprised me, and it is called The Way Back here. This came out, let's see, it might came out 10 years ago, I don't know. Can't see, but anyways, this is kind of almost I don't know, it wasn't a big, marketed movie that everybody was talking about at all. It was kind of one of those movies that you just, you hear by ear by someone else saying, hey, have you checked this movie out? And you go, no, I've heard of it. Like, I kind of barely heard of this movie when it came out, because I remember seeing Sam Rockwell or something like that on a talk show, and they mentioned that he was like in a new movie, and they showed a clip, and I remember at the time thinking, I remember this movie like really got no mainstream press, and it's just kind of one of those movies that kind of just snuck on you, like you didn't know it was coming, and then all of a sudden it was out and in, didn't make a big splash or anything. So I kind of barely knew this movie existed and didn't really think about seeing it. And then my dad watched this on TV or something like that. So after it came out on TV or something, my dad saw it and said, oh, hey, have you heard this movie, The Way Back? And I was like, I've heard of it, never seen it, never thought about watching it. And my dad was like, oh, it's a really good movie, you should watch it. And this happens sometimes where my dad will see something and recommend it. And then when I go visit my parents, he'll say, hey, let's watch this movie. And I'll go, yeah, let's watch it. And we watched it, and man, it just blew me away how good it was. I was like, wow. Not only is it funny, but it's also very, it's got some very good dramatic moments. It's a really well-written story. The two guys that wrote the story are two more comedians that are both actors and writers. Interesting enough, and they play. They're actually in the movie itself. See if I'm Nat Faxon and Jim Rash. Jim Rash I mostly know from playing the Dean Pelton on Community. He's an absolutely hilarious actor. But he also won. They both won, I think, Oscars for writing the screenplay for The Descendants, which was a George Clooney movie. And so they're Oscar-winning. I think they might have won the Oscar, and then they did this movie. Like, if I remember right, they were trying to get this movie off the ground, but they couldn't get off the ground. And then they won the Oscar for The Descendants, and then they were able to get this movie off the ground, which is more of a personal story, I think, for Jim Rash, I think, if I remember him talking about it. But anyways, if you don't know this movie, kind of it's about this kid here, this main kid, played by Liam James, who's kind of awkward. He's with his mom, played by the great Toni Collette. Toni Collette, his parents are divorced, of course, and and his mom has a new boyfriend, played by Steve Carell, who plays a huge jerk, which is funny because you know him as like this really funny guy. And here he's not funny; he's just very serious, but he's just a very unlikable guy. But and he has a daughter as well that's a real jerk too. Anyways, and so they're kind of on vacation, kind of with him on like this beach house that I guess he visits during the summer, and he doesn't know anybody. He's pretty depressed, I would say, over, parents being divorced. There's this guy that's dating his mom. He's, like I said, he's kind of awkward, socially awkward kind of guy, not very shy, kind of personality. Anyways, then he meets this guy named played by Sam Rockwell, who's the real star of this movie. Sam Rockwell is so good. That's why I love this movie, is he gives a really great performance. And I kind of knew Sam Rockwell, and I thought he was an okay actor, but then when I saw this, I thought Sam Rockwell is one of my favorite actors now. And then he would go on to win an Oscar after this with Three Billboards in outside of Ebbing, Missouri, and then he also did some other movies get nominations. Sam Rockwell was like a really sought after actor. He was just in Argyle this year. But at the time, he was kind of like not really a mainstream. I mean, he wasn't a big time actor, really. I mean, he was a big time actor, but he wasn't like a starring guy that you can bank on or win Oscars or anything. But he's really funny in this movie. I mean, he's absolutely hilarious. But then he has some moments with him and the kid. And what's so great about the movie is the kid, is just feeling so lonely and so insecure about himself, such low self-esteem. And then Sam Rockwell, he needs like a father figure. He needs a mentor. He needs somebody to help him out and bring him out of his shell. And he sees that, and he finds that out in this random guy who works at a water park. And so he invites him to work at the water park. So for the summer, this kid is working at the water park, and he kind of starts coming out of the shell a little more. There's a girl that he has a crush on as well. And then there's these moments where he kind of finally lets it out. He's kind of lets all these, you can tell he has all these, feelings inside, and he finally lets it out to this guy that he just met, but he trusts, and tells him, all his problems. And so it's a really touching moment, because he's like, yeah, you don't deserve any of this, and it's a really great moment when it comes towards the end of the film, where he finally kind of lets it go, his emotions, because he's a very quiet personality. And anyways, there's so much more to say about this movie, but man, it's a surprisingly just absolutely wonderful movie, really wonderful story. A lot of good actors and great performances there, but definitely, if you haven't heard that movie, check it out, The Way, Way Back. All right, number 85. Number 84, this one everybody should know. This is a classic, a Christmas classic, and that is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Yeah, I know Mike has seen this actually recently, and he didn't like it that much, but man, I love this movie. It's one of my go-tos every Christmas. It's like maybe a top 5, if not top 5, definitely my top 10 favorite Christmas movies to watch every year. And I've seen it since I was a kid, and I've seen all the National Lampoon movies. I've always been a fan of them. It's definitely Chevy Chase's best character that I think he's done. And this is my favorite of the vacation movies. And I want to say it's one of maybe 2 that's actually PG-13. Most of them are R. Even though there are some moments in here that are getting close. But I mean, and it's just a great, they take this, what I love about Griswold, that Chevy plays, is like he's an idiot, and he makes a lot of mistakes. He does a lot of morally questionable things, but yet it seems like he does love his family. He does mean the best for his family. He's just an idiot, and overdoes it at times. But I still think he has, he has the right heart for the most part. And that's what I love about the character. He's a very likable guy. And you just really feel for him, he wants this really good Christmas. He just wants his family to have this great Christmas. He's got all his in-laws in, and all fun kind of family to this Christmas like house to have this great Christmas, and everything goes wrong. It's just, it's a typical story of, playing this grand thing, and then everything just seems to go wrong after another. And it's absolutely hilarious. Of course, his brother-in-law, played by Randy Quaid. He's always been my favorite. He's absolutely hilarious in this movie. Yeah, Randy Quaid. I just love. He's definitely one of the stupidest characters ever in movies. So many great funny lines after another. My favorite part is just him putting together the lights on the. 'Cause that's a big thing I know in America is we love putting down up Christmas lights. Maybe in other countries, but I think we do it to excess. I've never done Christmas lights myself really, but when during Christmas time, man, all the houses are usually just lit up with Christmas lights, and I was like, man, that's a lot of work and to put Christmas lights on. But he way overdoes it, puts way too many lights on his roof and everything, and then he tries to make it work and doesn't work, and that whole part. And then we finally does get it to work, and it just shines so bright, almost shuts down the whole county because of all the power that's going to his house. And the Hallelujah chorus, Hallelujah, like I just absolutely that part just makes me laugh so much every time I see it because it's just so overdone. On the lights anyways, but yeah, it's such a classic for a reason. Just one of the funniest movies ever, I think, in my opinion. So that's why I had to put it in here. Absolute treat to watch this there. I watch it so many times and I never get tired of it. So Christmas Vacation at number 84 on my list. Number 83, going back to my favorite action franchise, and we're going with John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. The third in the 4-movie franchise so far. Maybe there'll be more. But man, they continue on just nailing the perfect, how to set up an action scene. There's a couple of action scenes that are just absolutely just took my breath away when I watched it. And this is the first John Wick movie I saw in the theater. I didn't see the first two in the theater. I rented them like after they came out. And after the second one, I was like, wow, the second movie, which I haven't talked about yet, it's up higher on my list. John Wick Chapter 2. That movie, like, to me, when I saw that, it blew me away. Like, I was like, that's the greatest, like, action movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, I was so, like, I didn't know you can do that in movies. Like, it was the perfect action movie to me. And so when this came out, I was like, I'm definitely going to see it in the theater. Like, I became a huge fan at that point, and I was not, disappointed. When I saw it in the theater, I was just like, oh my gosh, those are some of the coolest action scenes I've ever seen. And I just love the whole John Wick character. He's very quiet, but when he says something, it is always cool. But just the way he moves around with the gun, the way he, like I say this every time I watch it, is like my favorite thing about John Wick is how he loads the gun, which I never think about because usually you think about, usually you watch an action movie, they just shoot, and maybe every once in a while they might load the gun, but in this it's like very calculated how he shoots, loads, shoots, loads. And so it feels almost real in the fact that he loads constantly and he's so fast at loading. It's almost just as much fun for me just watching him, the different ways he loads a gun and different kind of guns he uses and how he has to load this type of gun. It's fun, and sometimes he has to use, jiu-jitsu or whatever to bring someone down while he's loading his gun and then shoot them. And just the way he just never misses, shoots everybody in the face. I should say, like I said, this is the first one where I was like, okay, if they can nail a third movie, like the first two set it up so well with this whole underground assassin world, and this begins right where the second one leaves off, which is amazing because the beginning part is just so great. How all these different assassins are after him and he's on the run. I mean, it's just a perfect action premise, to start the movie. And I even love, like, they go to the knife store thing, and he's throwing knives, and of course he's an expert knife thrower, and he's throwing knives and axes, and it's like, oh, that was such an amazing scene. And then he's on horseback, and he's being chased by motorcycles, and that was a real cool scene. It's just one cool scene. And then he gets into, like, a train station or whatever, and he kills, like, 3 guys with a pencil, and some other thing. Anyways, it's just one amazing action sequence after another. You're like, wow, I just can't, like, it felt like just fast paced. It's never going to end. Of course, then after a little while, you start, okay, now we're going to get more of a story. But then later on, we get at the Hotel Artemis, I think it is, or whatever, the where they stay at. There's a great action sequence towards the end where they're being attacked, and he has to fend them off, and he gets the armor-piercing bullets on these shotguns. And he's shooting and he's blowing people's heads away, and because they're so powerful, because they have armor, so he has to have these super powerful bullets that just maim people. Oh, also I should say Halle Berry was so great seeing her here with the two dogs. That was a cool element, and that was also amazing action sequences where they just go haywire um, on this facility in Morocco, and that was an amazing sequence. So yeah, some of the best action sequences I've said. My only negative is I hate the way it ends. And I wish they could, if they would have ended the series with this movie, they could figure out a way to end it. It would have been to me the greatest. It was be the perfect franchise. Unfortunately, they made a fourth movie, which I did not like, and what they did with the character. And I didn't like the fact that at the end, I'm going to spoil this movie. I'm sorry, but there's a point where he falls off of the building and he survives, and he falls off like several stories, and he's fine. And that's when I was like, okay, that's a little too much. I really did not like. There's no way he's getting up after that. He's dead, and he's alive at the end. And then the fourth movie, that happens a lot where he keeps falling off of high places or getting hit by cars, and falling down stairs, and he just keeps getting up, and you're like, okay, dude, you'd be dead. It gets a little too fantastical, but still, I was able to enjoy this even with the fantastical elements. But yeah, again, man, if you love action movies, the whole John Wick series, you gotta watch. And this is definitely one of my second favorite out of the series. So that's John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, 83 on my list. 82, I'm going with an animated movie. This is my favorite DreamWorks movie, actually, and that's How to Train Your Dragon. I talked about Kung Fu Panda last time, was I think my second favorite. This is my favorite. So I don't have a lot of DreamWorks movies. There's a lot of good ones. Like I don't have the Shrek movies in, but I do like Shrek. And there's some other ones in there I'm not thinking of. Yeah, there's some good stuff in there, but definitely the one that stands out to me is How to Train Your Dragon, which I saw in the theater when it came out, and I really had no anticipation for it. I didn't really know anything about, what was going to be about necessarily, or what kind of experience I was going to have, and I was kind of blown away when I saw this in theater. In fact, I would say this is one of the best theater experiences I ever had, and that's why I still, really think highly of this movie. It's so high on my list, or not real high, but it's on my list of top 100 favorite movies. Because I saw this in 3D back when like every movie came out in 3D. So I saw almost every movie in 3D back then. Nowadays, I try to avoid watching 3D because I don't know, they just kind of hurt my eyes, and I don't care for it that much. It doesn't really add much to the movie to me. But this is one exception, I'll say, is like I was so happy I saw this in 3D because scenes where he's on, the dragon toothless. The first part where he fixes his tail and then they go on, he rides on top of him for the first time, is the coolest flying sequence I've ever seen in my life. And seeing it in 3D, like I've never experienced flying like that before. Like I remember watching it and being like, wow, must be what it's like to fly. Because I really felt like, I mean, the camera work was just the best I've ever seen in a flying sequence. It's an anime movie, but I was like, holy cow, like the way he's going up and down and around stuff, and you're like, holy cow, like you really feel like you were moving. So to me, that's probably my favorite part of the movie. That whole sequence is absolutely amazing itself, but it's also, a really good story about, it's about these Vikings who fight these dragons. It's in a fantasy world, I guess, where dragons exist. And, dragons, kill these Vikings. I say Vikings. They were kind of like these Scottish Vikings, I guess. And so then they're like, oh, dragons are evil. We got to kill all dragons, kind of thing. And then this character, his dad's the chief, whatever, the village. And he's kind of real scrawny as you can see. And he can't bring it to himself to kill this dragon. And he ends up helping him, and they end up forming a friendship, whatever. And then he finds out that dragons aren't evil. And it's one of these things where it's like, we just don't understand them. And once you understand them, understand like, oh, there's a reason why all this is happening. And it's like, it's one of those things like, why are we fighting the dragons? It's because we've been doing it for generations, and no one really questions why, except that's just what you're taught. And that's what happens in real life. So I do like the idea is like, hey, how about we talk about it and we find out that, hey, maybe we're not evil after all, and maybe we can get along. So I do love that idea of like trying to get along and not just killing for the sake of like, that's just what you do, really, questioning that part anyway. So I think overall the story is really well done. It's got some key comedic parts, some dramatic parts. And like I said, the flying sequences are absolutely amazing. The end sequence with the big dragon, that he has to kind of fight this big dragon, like that sequence is also amazing. Animation's absolutely amazing. I love all the side characters are really great here as well. And it's really great musical score. I think the guy, yeah, John Powell, because it's got kind of a Celtic, Scottish, there's bagpipes and stuff like that. So it's got a Scottish kind of feel to it. It reminds me of Braveheart, has that kind of feel to it. And I absolutely love that kind of music. So, and the flying sequences, man, when they really blare that music, is a great score anyway. So, but yeah, so favorite DreamWorks movie, absolutely love it. One of my favorite anime, top 10 favorite anime movie, How to Train Your Dragon. I'd say, or if not top 10, pretty close to it. All right, last movie I'm going to talk about on this list at number 81. I have a Star Trek movie, Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. It's actually my second favorite Star Trek movie. I have one more ahead of this. That'll be on my list. This is my favorite of the original cast of the 6 movies they did. And I think I love this so much because it's, of course, directed by Leonard Nimoy, who plays Spock. It's the second movie right after The Search for Spock. And I think this is probably the most comedic movie out of the 6. I guess I kind of partly like it. And I love the time travel aspect, where they time travel back to kind of modern day San Francisco, and the fish out of water aspect where they don't understand modern day how to live without the technology. They're used to all this technology, and they're used to not having money, and then they're back in America, where you have to have money and all these cultural things they don't understand. So I love that's really funny. But yeah, and I love Kirk and Spock are so good together in this, and they have a lot of great moments. But I like how it's like I said, the time travel aspect, and how they have this mission where they have to get these 2 humpback whales and bring them back to their day. So because this alien ship is going to like destroy the planet if they don't get 2 humpback whales, because they went extinct in the future. And so I love how all the members kind of have their moments. Like it's like, okay, you guys need to go, and we need to find nuclear energy to get to warp drive or something like that on this, because they have like a Klingon ship, I believe, that they're bird of prey, whatever, that they're driving at the moment, because they went rogue in the last movie. So they went against Starfleet command, and so they're kind of outlaws in a way. So it's kind of interesting that this comes right after that, and so they're still kind of outlaws, and they don't have the Enterprise at the moment. And so it's like, okay, you need to get that. Of course, we need to get the humpback whales. We also need to get tanks to put the whales in, because we need to beam them onto the board, but we can't beam them on board without water, because they have to be in water. So we have to fix that problem. So I kind of loved all the problem solving of, okay, and he sends 2 people to go do that, you go do that, and they all have their fun moments within the movie, which I love. As a Star Trek fan, I should say, like, I grew up a fan of Star Trek, the original series, because my dad especially, I think maybe my mom, but my dad especially was a big fan back in the 60s when this TV series came out. And so when I grew up, I was watching this series, on like reruns. I grew up watching Star Trek reruns, and then I watched The Next Generation, was like the show that was going on at the moment. I'm a huge Next Generation fan. That's my favorite Star Trek of all time, is that series. But I still do have a lot of love for the original series. And it's because the characters are so great. Kirk, William Shatner's Kirk, great character. Of course, Spock is an iconic character. But Bones, McCoy, the Doctor, and then you got, of course, her first, kind of major black, character that we've had in one of these movies, and you have a Japanese actor here as well, George Takei, and then Nichelle Nichols plays Uhura, and James Doohan, who plays Scotty, the Scottish. Who's actually Canadian in real life, but played Scottish, an head engineer. I love all these characters. Walter Koenig as the Russian, now I'm forgetting his name, but anyways, but I love the different characters and how they all mesh together. That's what made the show so good, and that's what makes this movie so good. And also, it's just, I think it's a really good movie where even if you're not a Star Trek fan or if you haven't seen the other movies, I think you still enjoy this one. I said for the humor, but also there's always this, all right, we got to do this, but then this conflict happens. It constantly happens in the movie where it's like, okay, we almost have our mission over, but oh no, here's a new conflict that we have to solve. And then we solve that conflict, and then here's a new conflict. And so at the end, it's actually very like, and they're kind of against, it's one of those things where it's like they don't have a lot of time. They got to do it in this amount of time. So definitely the stakes are very high. And it's like, we can't dilly-dally, we got to get done. So I love that aspect of definitely a thrilling aspect to it, like, oh, they got to get right away. They got to do it the first time. If they mess up, then the whole mission's over, So I do love that aspect because it definitely makes everything more exciting. And I think that ending is very exciting, and I love how it all comes together. Anyways, but yeah, it's just a really enjoyable movie. One, like I said, my favorite of the original. Those Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan is very good, I think. And 6, The Undiscovered Country is very good as well. I'd recommend those 3 of the original series, but yeah, this has always been a fan favorite for me anyways. So that's my number 81 on my list, Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. So anyway, so that's my 5 for today. Feel free to comment what is your favorite movie out of here, or what do you think about these movies? Have you seen them? Love to hear your comments on that. I really appreciate that, and just thank you to everybody who's watching this video. Thank you for liking it, and just thank you to all my subscribers for supporting the channel. I appreciate you all, and I hope you have a good day.